And I'm now super delighted to bring another America up on stage, Howard from NVIDIA, who's going to tell us about consumers' monetization in the connected world.
Close, but we'll get there.
I got the right word.
So, good. So I was intrigued by two of the things that Paulo just said. One was that there's a strong business for a broadcaster that needs to be protected. So anything that we do, we look at the overall business and how one part will affect the other. And the other thing that I wanted to bring out as we go through is that NVIDIA is in the linear addressable business. So when we talk about connected TV, we talk about enabling the linear feed to do digital targeted advertising. So I wanted to focus on those two things today. So getting started, we all pretty much know that digital is the way of the future. Connected TV is coming. We know that there's technologies that enable connected TV to do digital insertion. You've got Project OR, you've got HBB TV. We started working with Gracenote on some trials about 8 years ago. So we know that the technology works. We know that it's coming. The question is, when is it going to be here at enough volume and enough ubiquity that everything can start to move into the digital space and we don't have to worry about the linear space and the effects on that? And then if we don't have that today and we need to make that work, when is it going to be here and what can we do to expedite that change? What can we do to avoid losing money in the meantime? So one of the keys here is that when you take a portion of the footprint out of the linear delivery, you only reach a certain small section of the audience. How much is that worth? What do we do with the rest that hasn't been attacked? How do you monetize that? Do you just take the digital component of that and say that's enough and we don't care about the linear side? How do you bring those together? And Paulo said she's got two teams that she works with, the digital team and the TV team. Well, if you take that out and you work with the digital team only, the TV team loses out. And you don't want that to slow down the progress. Now, we saw a lot of this in the US as linear addressable TV was deployed. And it took about 8 to 10 years for the publishers really to get involved. And they're involved now. And we know why they're involved now. And it's called critical mass. But there were things that they could have done to move the market faster. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Okay? So I'm not here to talk about just the digital part. I'm not here to say if you run a connected TV addressable business, here's how you make the most money. What I really want to talk about is how, as a broadcaster, you can increase your overall revenue with the linear part, with the digital part, bringing that together and moving the entire ecosystem forward. Okay? All right, so that is really critical to moving it. So I'm going to tell you a bit of a story about three teams. There's a red team, a green team, and a blue team, and they approach the market differently. So let me go through that. You've got the red team, that's a spot-based team. So TV is sold by spots, right? You're selling the entire spot, everybody sees the same ad. The green team is going to sell just the connected TV, and they're going to sell it addressably. And then the blue team, we think, has the right approach, and we'll go through that. But for ease, let's say there are 100,000 viewers, you have a $10 CPM. Easy to do the math, you get $1,000 in revenue for that spot. Okay? The green team comes in and they say, well, we're going to take 20% of that through HBB TV, through OR, through something else. We're going to make that addressable. We're going to approach that. We're going to give them targeting. We're going to give them accurate measurements. We're going to be able to do attribution. And for that, we're going to charge not a $10 CPM, but we think we can get 4 times that. Now, you may look at that and say $40 seems high compared to 10. Actually, it's a little conservative in what we've seen. 40 is fairly typical, but we've seen higher than that. Okay? When you do that, that larger gray spot typically goes unused. They run a promo ad. The issue with that is, as a content provider, as a publisher, how do you monetize that gray area? Do you go out to the same advertisers and say, I can give you this spot and reach 80% of the people that we could have reached before we enabled digital? Advertisers have typically said, no, we don't want that. We want the 100% of the audience, because we don't know what 20% is gone. Are they the high-end users? Are they something else? Why would we want to do that? If you're going to do that, you're going to have to significantly discount it. So what our customers have done is they've taken that gray spot and they've run either promos or they've run DR. Okay? So they're not getting value out of that gray area. So when you do the math here, even though they're getting a $40 CPM on 20% of the market, they're actually only making $800. Okay? And these numbers are meant to serve as examples, but this is very typical of what we've seen. So in the hybrid world, what we do is we say, you're selling impressions. If you're selling impressions in the connected TV world, you take that 20% and you sell based on an audience definition. Why not use that audience definition to sell the rest of the spot? Sell it programmatically. Sell it using data-driven linear. So now you're able to take, of that remaining 100,000, remaining 80,000, there's about 15% that is in there that has value. If you change the game, if instead of selling it as a spot, you sell it as impressions, you bill it as impressions, you track it as impressions. And then what happens is you can get that same $40. So you still are only selling 15%, but when you do the math, you get another $600 out of that spot. So now what you've done is you've taken a potential loss and you've made it into a gain. You've allowed your advertisers to get a larger reach, okay? And, excuse me, connected TV is now a moneymaker and a positioner for the future rather than just a loss leader or a toy that you're trying out until somebody gets to the point where it's not 20%, but 60% of the audience. Okay. So here in this example, very easy to see, 75% increase as opposed to just doing CTV alone. More importantly, it's even a 40% increase over staying with spot-based. So if we want the market to move from a spot-based approach to an impression-based approach, there has to be a strong financial incentive, and that's what we have here. Okay, now what does that mean? I mean, why do it? So you look at this and you say, all right, well, let's just say we enter this very slowly and we do 6 spots a day. And we do that 365 days a year. We make that $600. That's $1.3 million over the course of the year for 6 spots a day. Right? Multiply that out as to what it could be, and then how you transition and you add more inventory. Every one of our customers starts off with a slow number of spots, and then they take that and they grow it and they grow it and they grow it until it's not 1.3 million, but it's hundreds of millions. Okay, so another benefit here. As we have gone out and talked to advertisers, they've had to change their mindset from buying spots to buying audiences, from buying spots to buying impressions. This helps facilitate that transition. You can start moving more of your advertisers into this domain. You also, now you have impression buys on both the linear piece and on the digital piece. So what you're doing is you're taking the same measurement, the same impressions, and you can use that as a unifying element in campaigns. So when you sell to Procter & Gamble and they want to buy 1 million impressions, do they care that some of that was pure addressable and some of that was data-driven linear? They're getting the audiences they want, they're getting the payback they want, and they're getting it at the cost that they're used to. Okay? So, I mean, this should be a familiar graph to everybody, right? This is linear TV. It's not going anywhere. E-marketer, yes, it's 2021, but for those people who think that linear is dead, I've been hearing linear is dead for 15 years, okay? And it's doing pretty well. You know, it's still kicking. Excuse me, the method of delivery may change a little bit, but linear is still there. And then when we look at connected TV, there's a bump up. Well, how do we realize that total without diminishing that yellow piece? Transitioning, helping the advertiser, helping the publisher, helping the distribution partner, all transition from spot-based to targeted to addressable. And this is the key to moving that forward. Now, again, 3 teams, combine the approach, and this is how we move into the future. How do we make money? How do we raise the revenue? How do we incentivize everybody to move from an old technology to the new? Okay? And when you only have 10 minutes, you want the graphics to move more quickly. As it is, I pulled every third word out of my presentation. Okay. So if there are any questions, I mean, this is a lot of material. We can talk about how data-driven linear is done. We can talk about how the metrics, the impression data is gathered. We can talk about how you compare the measurement, right? All of those things are part of this, but distilling probably a full day or 2-day seminar into 10 minutes is tough, okay? So if you want to talk more about it, we're here. Do I have time for a question or two?
Unfortunately not.
Unfortunately not, okay.
But I'm sure Howard, you'll be around in the coffee break after.
I will.
Thank you, Howard. Right.